Can you expand on this one? You can't use self to get out of the self.
Yes. Well, it's something that comes out of the recovery community. It's not in the big book of recovery. It's really came from a lot of members' observation that self can't get out of self. So the way I see it, if there's an identification as self, yes, in place, and obviously without us knowing it, and then an aspect of activity is objectified and called self, yeah? But now the one that has objectified it as self is selfing also. So then that self can't get out of self. Now, this is what's frustrating or confusing because people think it's Paul trying to get out of self, and maybe if they just find the right methodology or they did more or somehow there's a stubborn wish or belief that they can get out of self as Paul, but Paul is AKA self. See? And so self can't get out of self. So it's disguised in plain sight because the self, there isn't a self, it's selfing. Yeah? So there's an implied historical self through selfing. Selfing implies a historical self. So self can't get out of self is the dilemma is just that it's the act of being identified through the listening to the selfing, the act of being identified as self. Yeah. So basically, it's presuming a condition that doesn't exist, and therefore that condition now wants to get out of a condition. Yeah. Yeah. So self can't get out of self. It's very simple if you don't see it from Paul. Yeah. Yeah. So if Paul gets questioned and then you realize, well, the objectified idea of self is basically from the same root as the subjective idea of self. Yeah. So there's self objectifying self and then wanting to get out of it as self. Yeah. Yeah. So leads to frustration, obviously. Yeah, but the stubbornness of it's sort of like the bite of a pit bull. The mental state. So let's say it fails. So Paul fails getting out of self. All it does is regroup, back up, and try to go again with another vehicle: spirituality, drug addiction, making a lot of money, getting the perfect place, whatever. But it's basically constantly running into the statement, self can't get out of self, but just backing up and trying, getting in another car, yeah, and just bammo. And it's just, I don't see any end to it, really. Yeah, it doesn't get convinced. It doesn't. What we are can be convinced, but it doesn't get convinced. Yeah, the mental activity of identification doesn't get convinced. So you're wasting your time trying to do that. But something or nothing gets convinced. And then basically, suddenly you see Paul in its real skeletal design, which is selfing, self, yeah? And then it hits you, self can't get out of self, or you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. All that is explained because obviously, as Paul, you believe you can use Buddhism to seek the Buddha. You do, you know? And so, as Paul, so the whole idea is questioning Paul, not Buddhism or anything like that. Because if Paul isn't Paul, you may find out it's the Buddha. And then when it hears the message, you can't use yourself to find yourself. It makes complete sense. Complete sense. And it can put an end to a lot of seeking tributaries, so to speak. You know, they'll just dry up by lack of interest and attention. Yeah. So that's what I see as self can't get out of self. It's just a perfect description of what's happening, but it gets hidden by what claims to be the hero of it. Yeah, yeah. Think it's Paul, a real long-lasting, independent, separate thing, but it isn't. It's just another aspect of selfing. Yeah. People don't see in duality. There's selfing is duality. See, we get fooled because the identification is as a long-lasting, independent, separate thing, like a unit, but it's not. What's implying that is a two-ness. Yeah. There's the objectified self, and then there's the subjective self. So you're thought about as self, or you're the thinking. Yeah. So it's a dualistic expression. This is why Ramana would say, first there's the thief, then there's the policeman. They're both selfing in a sense. Yeah. The funny thing is, you won't get to the policeman until you see the thief. So once you see self as that which objectively defeated you, let's say, now you see it as a thief, and then you get the other side of the selfing coin, which is the subject. That's where people get caught. Now they think they know self or ego or whatever, and they want to get out of it, but they don't realize they're representing selfing. Yeah? And then they get caught in the net. Self can't get out of self. And it's not explaining anything to them because they're reading the hieroglyphics as Paul trying to get out of self. And it's just, I just haven't found the right person or the right methodology. Or I didn't do enough of it. Yes? Yeah. So it's a stubborn like hiccup. And I don't see any remedy to it. You just have to see you're not that, really. Yeah.
Thank you. That's brilliant. He also said, in seeing what you are not, that you find what you are.
Yes, exactly. Because you are the seeing of what you're not. You're seeing, and then what you're not. Yeah. As Huang Po would say, whatever can be perceived, everything that you're not, cannot be perceiving the seeing of everything that you're not. Yeah. So whatever can be perceived can't be perceiving is basically getting to whatever can be perceived is what you're not, and what's perceiving is what you are. Yeah. But it's not a thing that's perceiving. Yeah. So yeah, I found see, I found the most important thing with the whole message of non-duality is warnings about what's going to arise and insinuate it's the one that heard the message. Yeah. So, and I think that's very stubborn and incredibly fast in time. And I think people need warnings about it so that they can recognize it. Because if they don't recognize it, they're looking from it. And when they're looking from it, they're going to give a meaning to non-duality that non-duality doesn't mean, really. So, in my view. So, yeah. I started sharing from there because I went to satsangs and I didn't hear it emphasized. And so people would say, well, you went to satsang, so you're saying the same thing. I said, no, I went to satsang and I'm not saying the same thing because I felt it was underappreciated, recognizing the act of being identified as self. It's it's like fast, very fast in time. The only thing that can actually beat it is not of time. And that's what's seeing. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I've heard messages when I was out there, when I was younger, and it resonated, did a lot, but then it got claimed very quickly, and unbeknownst to me, and then it sort of got neutered, and it became something, yeah. And until I saw that, going to satsang was actually reinforcing what I'm not. Yeah. Just like anything, if I went to the car wash, it's reinforcing what I'm not. Satsang wasn't any different. It wasn't. It was the mechanical mental process kicks in anywhere you are. Whatever it's brought into contact with, it's going to claim and use that to imply the hearer of the message more than the message. Tell you the truth. That's and I know run into a lot of people in non-duality that haven't recognized that thief. They they believe when they hear a description of what they are, they don't see that they're holding it as what they're not. It's just crazy. Yeah, that's why it's not translating, because it's been claimed by something. You know, yeah, it also, yeah, but it gets overridden here because the attention and interest is more engaged in what you're not really, because it's been programmed to believe that's you. And it's sort of like a bloodhound. It follows the scent. That's whatever the scent implies that is you, that's where it goes. Yeah. And yeah, I've seen, you know, I would say non-duality, the message of non-duality should, you know, could be very concise and very quick. Yeah. But usually it describes the indescribable instead of paying attention and describing the describable, and then take the negative route and just say I'm not that, and then leave everything to whatever, you know. You just need to get this thing clear, and then you'll see what happens. Maybe you are clear. You don't have to get clear. Yeah. And that's how it seems to have played out with me with this. So I just stick with the same message, you know, for years now. I don't see any point to go anywhere else. I don't. It just duplicates the dilemma, you know. It does. So yeah.
Yeah, we last talked, and the one thing that stuck with me is that you said it's like a snap. It snaps back right away, the selfing, and it not
Yeah.
even it. Yeah, it just bounces back or whatever you were saying. That was brilliant.
But you can see it because you're not of time. You can. You may not see it quite a lot in time, but you can see it. Yeah. And once you see it, uh, it doesn't have infinite amount of manifestations. It's very mechanical. And if you realize that whatever you come in contact with, it's going to arise and claim it. That's what it does. It's just that simple. But it takes time for that to happen. And you're not of time in a way. So, and when you see it not in time, it's not a quick glimpse, because time, you know, it's not necessarily, even though it seemed like it was only there for half a half a second can be rather long if it's not like calibrated by time. Yeah. And so you can see a whole lot in what you would think was a tiny little bit of time. Yeah. So, and then once happens, then you recognize it, and you don't call it Paul. You recognize it. That's all. You don't call it anything. Yeah. You recognize it, and without your compliance, it doesn't have it. Its its ability to extend is weakened. It can't last long, and it doesn't hold much meaning because it's you that give it everything it has. So if the audience doesn't go along with the play stops in a lot of ways. It keeps mechanically going, but there's not that much. The interest has shifted to somewhere else. Yeah, and yeah, and you'll know it by its fruits. Yeah, you'll. you'll travel lighter over time, and you'll realize you really actually had absolutely nothing to do with that. You're just observing, Jesus, I don't need that many skillful means or anything like that. I just sort of, you know, whatever.
I,
So,
I like your sweat lodge story there. You know, that was I was laughing hard at that one. Going to the sweat lodge and then going there and
yes.
rowing. It's kind of like reminded me of me waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning for a long time, meditating 3 4 hours. By the time at 3 o'clock hits, I'm like, I'm really tired. I don't know why. It's just a lot of suffering doing that. Can you share that story? That was really funny and really it's a lot of wisdom there.
Well, there's two sweat lodge stories. So the first one was when I entered recovery from addiction and alcoholism. Obviously, I was keen on living a different way than I had been. I knew that was done, so to speak. And so a woman I knew in San Francisco told me about this event that was going to happen in Mount Shasta, which is a beautiful mountain in the north of California. And it has a lot of, unknowingly, it's got a lot of mystical creds in the New Age world, so to speak. You know, ascended masters live there, a lot of crystal shops, and so I decided, yeah, I'll go up. I didn't go with her. I took my own car, and I drove up there, and I met her, and there was lots of people there, and then people kept coming in who were big stars in this little subculture of sweat lodge people, and the people that were familiar with it said this is like the Super Bowl of sweat lodges. Yeah, this happens only once every few years or something. And people coming in, oh, there's what's his name or whatever. And so there's about, I guess, hundreds of people there, maybe 400 or 500 people. And so they built these huge lodges out of cedar and shit like that, like they're supposed to do. They had some Indians from Oklahoma there, and I'd never been to a sweat lodge. I really didn't have much knowledge of it. And so the first one was going to be starting, so everyone got in there, as many as people could. And I was standing there, and it was packed. And then the flap went down, and and there was boulders in this big pit with the Indian and a couple of his cohorts next to him, and they put the flap down. It's totally pitch black, and I try to sit down, but people are underneath my ass basically, so I had to stand up. And they had these like cedar saplings as rafters, so I was holding onto these rafters, and then the heat wave started hitting, and man, it burnt my underarms and my nose and my ears. It was just fucking waves and waves, and I was praying, but I was praying for it to stop. I just couldn't take it anymore. But I wasn't going to run out because, I would have been talked about the rest of the weekend. Oh, there's the guy who fucking. So my spiritual face and my spiritual pride, I would die before I was shown up. So I was just praying, please stop it. And then suddenly they stop and the flap opens and everyone runs out and I jump into the stream and I cool off, and then I went back for the next session, but I sat as close to the flap as possible. And people get strategies, they sit there or whatever, and so what happened is I left that event. I stayed the 3 days, and years later, I worked with people in recovery, and one of my sponsees in recovery got into the Native American spiritual stuff, and they built a little freaking sweat lodge in the back of this property in Petaluma, about a half hour from here, and he invited me to go there. And because I wanted to support him, I went. And they brought an Indian from Oklahoma again. They got an Indian there, and there was only about 12 guys, and they had a big pit outside with a fire, and they had food and a couple of igloo things with calistogas. So we all go into the sweat. Yeah, I'm sitting there, and then feel hot, and I just go, I'm hot, and I walk out. Just walked out, All the food was there. I drank all these Calistogas. I could hear them crying and moaning and praying, and I was just enjoying the night sky and chilled out. And I saw that as incredible spiritual progress, really, from the first sweat. I had no idea what had happened, but I realized if it gets hot, I'm leaving, basically. That was it. So, yeah, I mean, whatever. You know, if you're meditating 13 hours a day, you usually think you're going to go somewhere. You know, I mean, I'll meditate. I don't even call it that. I'll just lay down for 10 minutes because of blood pressure or something or whatever. But if I'm doing things for 13 hours, I think I'm going somewhere. Yeah. And you're not. You're not going you're going a lot of places, but you're always going to be there when you get there. So I just lost interest in all that, you know. You know.
Yeah, I've been to a sweat lodge too, and I wish I read your book because it was so freaking hot. I just the
I
whole
know.
time, the whole time I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. The
I
whole
know.
time.
Incredible.
And you're trying to be spiritual, you're trying to listen to what people are saying, but really what's in your mind is get me the fuck out of this heat.
It's exactly. You remember when you used to go on retreats, meditation retreats? You know, the first day you go into the meditation hall, it's beautiful, spacious. They have a little square of a rug and then a pillow, yeah? And everyone meditates. After about 5 days, you go in, there's just mountains of pillows trying to lift your right cheek off the ground because all you're thinking fucking about is that right cheek. You know, and then other people just give up and they lay down and they're snoring and shit, and you're so fucking envious of them, but you don't want to lose your spiritual face again. So it's just insane. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing right with it, really. But I think the nobility we give certain things, they don't deserve the nobility. Yeah, I'd rather put the nobility in here, you know, right now. Yeah, yeah. So.
Yeah. I've been to one of those retreats too. It's like 10 days and trying to be silent and really just want to get the fuck out of there. You know what I'm saying? It's just always, or yeah, you're right. You're meditating and you're really uncomfortable. An hour has passed by. You're like, I don't know if I can do this for another hour. So in your mind, I'm like, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? And when is something going to happen to me? It's kind of like, and I like what you said here. There's no self to be free.
That's right. And the thing is, you see, under duress, if you try to use who am I, it doesn't work well. Because you're just trying to get out of me as me. Yeah? Under duress, non-duality isn't like an axe that you break the window and it doesn't work that way. It can't be, it resists being used, yeah, as a strategy, I find. Yeah. So in those moments, oh yes, I've been up 8 hours. I'm going to ask, who am I? It's usually you just want to fucking get out. I don't care who I am or what I am. I want to get up from this thing, you know. So whatever. And what happens is usually it generates more. See, you felt something, and maybe you convinced yourself you felt something, and the only thing you can do, well, that wasn't enough, so I got to do more, longer ones. Yeah? And then after years of that, it doesn't work, so now they mix them. So they'll have tantric, they'll have some therapy, they'll have sitting, you know, they try to make it, and it just, you know, I read this thing when I was younger. There's a beautiful Buddhist magazine called Tricycle. They used to, I don't know if it's still around. Very nice articles, and I used to get it. And I remember this one of the articles in one of the magazines was a famous Western meditation teacher was talking about a phenomena he was having with his older students. They were all getting in touch with him saying nothing fucking's happened. Yeah? So there I am on the spiritual bus. I just reached up and pulled the emergency brake and got off. I just said, these people are doing a whole lot more than I'm ever going to do, and they just told me nothing's going to happen, so let's just jump off this ship, so to speak, yeah? Take my chances in the water. So that's what I did, really. So,
That's a
so
great.
luckily, I just heard this message.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
It was a no. I just, you know, see. I remember I was in this rehab. I lived in a program for 2 years, a drug and alcohol program. Lived there. I had to be managed by others. I had to be. Yeah. If what was leading me was managing my life, it always led me to having to be managed by other people, authorities. So here I was in this program, and I remember I'd been there about 11 months, and I started to have a feeling that I need something. I couldn't put a finger on it, but I knew something, I needed it. So what I did, and I couldn't see it in the program, so I asked the people who'd been there the longest, and none of them knew what the hell I was talking about. So I knew I was going to leave that place. I graduated, but I was going to leave it. And then what's amazing was 10 months later, after I went back out again, I washed up on the shores of recovery, and that's what I noticed was missing in that program. I didn't know what it was, but when I was introduced to it, I knew that. That's the same thing with non-duality. Exact same thing. I couldn't put my finger on it, but when I was introduced to it, I knew that was that. Yeah. It was like an unspoken yes. It put an end to a lot of stuff. And it's been established as the last answer, which is a freaking incredible answer because it negates all need for any other answers in this topic. And, I'm open for reviews, but no reviews occur. It just, it's like that thing, what's new in non-duality, 2020? Nothing. There's nothing new. It's never changing, yet always changing. So yeah, that's I didn't know that was possible in life. I didn't. I figured you just kept going. Yeah, you just kept going and adding on to and refining it and getting it more targeted. I didn't know there could just be a stopping of all that. Yeah, no idea until I did. Yeah, and then yeah,
Yeah, for me, it was like, hitting rock bottom. I'm like, is there another bottom after this? Another bottom after this? And then I just laughed. I'm like, fuck, this shit. It's just, yeah, the last answer that you said. And it's just, I'm going to read something from Ramana that you also include in the book. There's a presupposing of a non-existent thing and wanting to get salvation for the non-existent thing. That's what the selfing was doing, was salvation.
yeah, yes, yes. Because see, it feels like it's lost, so it believes it can be found. It's neither lost nor found. It's non-existing. Yeah. So non-existence doesn't have one bit of relevance in it, and that's really when push comes to shove, the mental process that's running all this stuff, that's what it fears the most. Lack of relevance. It doesn't want to admit it's non-existent. And so it keeps trying to produce imaginary effects to prove that it's a cause. Yes? Yeah. So the eyes are there to see. You can see it. And then, and hopefully have an understanding of its nature, not your nature. You'll find that out. But have an understanding of the mental process's nature. And its nature has been described. Whatever it comes in contact with, it's going to claim to refer back to it, basically. So It comes in contact with seeing. It interprets there must be a seer in that, and then the emphasis goes on the seer and seen, and then you lose the sense of the seeing, which is living, you know. And so basically, living is replaced by a mental interpretation, which leaves us quite dry, and so now we're driven to seek, yeah, in basically all the wrong places in a lot of cases, and but it has nothing to do with find. It's seek. It's agitation begetting agitation. It has a story. The agitation is to arrive at peace, but it has no intention of arriving at peace. It wants agitation because that's where it appears in, is agitation. When there's a stopping, it's obvious it's not so, yeah? So, yeah, it's a trip. It's stubborn. It is.
It
I,
is. It's kind of like wanting no desire. You know, that's what we try to do as a selfing. Wanting no desire is still a desire.
of course.
Yeah.
You can't get out of it if you're in it. That's the whole point. This is where people are trying to save each other time. You can't get out of what you're not in. You can't. It's impossible. This is the dilemma. It presupposes you're in, and then it tells you should get out. Yeah, and so you try to get out, which is reinforcing the in. It's just so like the peace is not after bondage; it's before the bondage. Yeah, the peace before the bondage. There is no one to be bound. There's bondage, of course. There's this. There's tons of shit, but not one of them are connected to a noun. Yeah, they're just verbing, going on and on and on and on and on. It's the insertion of a noun that interprets everything based on how it pertains to the noun. Yeah, and you can't get out of that. You can't get out of that as the noun. Self can't get out of self. So that's why I don't care. You know, people can send me superhuman experiences. I don't give a shit. Yeah. Because the system just regroups and fucking claims everything, and there you go again. You know, freedom doesn't have to look exciting. It's just a fact. Yeah. And then, yeah,
I think you said freed from the need of liberated. That's brilliant.
for sure. For sure. That which you're not is in dire need of liberation. It is. But you're not that. So that's the real freedom is from the need to be liberated. Yeah. Just look at what in the community of non-duality, let's say, look at the use of the word awakening and the use of the word enlightenment. Has it brought about a lightness or a heaviness? All you need to see is that. Yeah. People would have been better off if they never heard the awakening ever. They would have been. They would be much better off if they never heard enlightenment. It's been used by what you're not to beat the living shit out of itself, and you being identified as it tells the story it's beating the shit out of me. It's not beating the shit out of you, it's beating the shit out of itself. But being aligned with it, we feel like we're getting our asses kicked. Yes. Yeah.
It's like another sweat lodge.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
The switch is easier because it's obvious.
yeah.
The term for that stop sign is different. It's more like the Buddha would talk about dukkha, and then some people would explain, well, it's not really suffering, it's like a malaise, it's like a vague dissatisfaction. Well, yeah, yeah. The flamboyant expressions of that are easy to recognize. It's the subtler ones. Yeah, yeah.
I like the way that you also shared the brownie camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brownie Camera. All you're trying to do is put out images so people can recognize something, yeah, or nothing really. So the Brownie Camera is, when I was growing up, it was like a very cheap little box. It actually wasn't the Brownie; it came after the Brownie. You'd buy these at like uh, drug stores, a little cardboard box back to the pharmacy, and they would develop them. Now, when you were shooting a picture, you couldn't even see what you were shooting. It was a very plasticky lens. You just pointed and hoped you got something. And so here you are, there's the Brownie sitting there. Then there's this incredibly, almost like an organic camera with surround sound and Panavision and everything like that. And it's walking around on its little tripod, and then it looks and it says, hey, and it looks through the Brownie camera. And in the looking through the Brownie camera, it appears to the advanced camera that it's forgotten itself by being identified as the Brownie. It doesn't get that I'm forgetting myself. It's just taking itself to be the Brownie. And in duality, like the Course in Miracles would say, firm in faith that you are something else is the active denial of what you are. So it's a dualistic event. Yeah. So here you are. So you look through the Brownie, and there's a forgetting of what you are, and you take on the qualities of the Brownie to the point where something isn't working. The pictures suck. You're just fucking. They're not. They're not even worthy of an album and anything. And you're getting a little bit dissatisfied and irritable and restlessness. And then, so you decide, I'm going to fucking save my money and get a $5,000 Nikon lens. I'm going to put it on the Brownie and I'm going to advance. But the thing is, the prior lens is going to affect the quality of the $5,000 lens. Yeah? What's there? The Brownie's going to override all of your fucking accessories and all of your updates and everything. The Brownie's just going to flatten it all. So suddenly someone walks through and calls you, and he doesn't use the word Brownie. He calls you, and the big camera goes, what? And it doesn't have to pull itself off the Brownie. It was never attached to the Brownie. It was never the Brownie. It's always been this camera. The correction, in a sense, wasn't needed to be corrected because it never actually happened. I did not become the Brownie. Yeah? Nor was I ever the Brownie, or will I ever be the Brownie. And I'm not going to become the advanced camera because I am that. Yeah? So there's no becoming what I am, and there's no unbecoming what I'm not. Yeah? So all that's out, and that's the whole point. That's the message, in a way. See, you can describe the Brownie. We've been looking at its pictures for years. We can describe the Brownie. We can understand the Brownie. And all you need to do is, when you recognize the Brownie, just don't call it you, or don't be that which calls it you. Yeah? Yeah, and now you're seeing what you're not, aka the Brownie, from what you are. That's all. Yeah.
I just want to bring back. Sorry, I had a problem there with the. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to bring back what you said earlier, which is really hits the Buddha cannot. What was that again? It
Yeah.
was
So,
brilliant. The Buddha cannot.
yes, you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha.
That's the one. Brilliant.
And you can't use mind to seek mind. You can't use light to seek light. You can try it for eons and nothing's going to happen. Huang Po, my favorite Chinese Zen master. Yeah, that's an incredible statement. And of course, if you were there at the talk, and there was Emerson and Paul and Mary and Jill and Steve, Huang Po wasn't talking to Emerson, Paul, Jill, Mary, and Steve. He was talking to the Buddha. Yeah, AKA Paul, Jill, Mary, Emerson, Steve. Yeah. So the message wasn't to Steve or to Paul or to Emerson. It was actually through Emerson, through Paul, through Steve to the Buddha. Now, usually, how after the hearing of it, it's interpreted the other way. It was to Paul, and it doesn't hit the Buddha. It hits Paul, and then Paul gets more confused because he's been using Buddhism for 30 years looking for the Buddha. And now someone just fucked all that up, and so he usually probably will walk away and never go to another Huang Po meeting. Yeah? But in fact, Huang Po wasn't talking to him. He was talking to the Buddha. And he said, Buddha, you can't use yourself to find yourself, obviously. Yeah? And that's the hit, obviously. If the Buddha hears it, it's obviously. Yeah? It's not like, doesn't need 8,000 commentaries. It's just a whack. Yeah? Because that's what happened with me. It was like, oh, the gig's up. Basically, it described my life since I've been 6 years old. I was using the Buddha to get out of the Buddha, yeah, or whatever. I was using the Buddha to seek the Buddha. For me, it was I was using self to get out of self. I had no idea, but now I do.
And I like what you said too, that this is really good too. And I laughed at this. Is when the self wants to thinks that it's God. Did you hear that? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. And then there's another
yes,
voice that comes in
yeah,
that you're not God.
yes. See that you gotta see subjectified, and you realize, hey, that's a disturbing factor, or let's put it that way. Yeah. Most people don't see that what's recognizing that has been claimed and it's selfing, implying it's another self. Yeah? But you have to see duality. There is no one self. There's none, but it's implied that there's at least two. Yeah? There's the subjective version and the objective version. Yeah? The subjective version, sooner or later, unless you stay like 2 levels below a coconut your whole life, sooner or later, that's the first aspect of selfing is going to be objectified. You're going to recognize it. Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. But it immediately, it's there, so it migrates to the subject. It claims to be the seeing of the object. And most of us don't catch the second thing. And you'll never catch it without seeing the first because it'll just be hiding in the grass. But when you catch the first aspect of it, it comes up. It sticks its head up and you can recognize it. Yeah.
Tricky,
And
tricky, tricky,
non-duality. Hmm?
tricky. Very, very tricky.
But it's non-duality. That's the negation of duality. The
Yeah.
negation of duality is subject-object. Selfing is implying both of them are you. Yeah? You're the thought about and you're the thinking. Yeah?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you only see one without the other, it doesn't go anywhere.
All of this who am I, inquiry. It just reinforces the self.
It can, but it may not because you're using the objectified self to ask the subject self. And
Got
there's a
it.
point where they'll negate each other. And then that answer that you're waiting for is already there. Yeah. That's the beauty of it. But Ramana, the way I read him, and I'm not a scholar, he said, you're using the self-inquiry not as a formula or a path. You're using it, and then as soon as there's that negation, you're resting. Yeah, you're resting in the negation of those two subject object. I'm all for that. If people are having a lot of people launch into a story about, I'm worried about next week, and you can just, well, who is that that's worrying about next week? So you put an end to that inquiry about next week, and you just inquire who is worried. Because next week doesn't mean shit. It means a lot to you, yeah? And that's the point. Forget about next week, but that sense of you is questionable. Yeah. See, there's meaning being given. If you see this as a dreaming, which I do, I like the Course in Miracles description. And the lesson 2 of the Course in Miracles says, you and I give everything all the meaning it has, which is a pretty comprehensive statement. It has the word everything in it and all. So there's no way out. You and I are giving everything all the meaning it has. We're dreaming, yeah? Yeah. So the meaning, see, the meaning isn't coming at us. We're giving things meaning. And then, see, there's a projection of that, and then there's the perception. When we perceive it, it looks like things are imposing their meaning on us, but it's actually we've given them the meaning. We don't see that part. Yeah, it's a trip. So
It is. I like this one from Raman. I'm going to read it to you. It's kind of like relates to that one. There's no greater mystery than this. Ourselves being the reality, we seek to gain reality. We think that there is something hiding our reality and it must be destroyed before the reality is gained. It is ridiculous. A day will dawn when you will yourself laugh at your past efforts. That which will be on the day you laugh is also here and now.
all right. So let's say you follow that logic. People arrive at the thing that I sort of have to be destroyed for the attainment of reality. So this once again is duality. So the self that needs to be destroyed has been objectified, but there's a subjective self that says no fucking way. Yeah. So you're telling me I have to be destroyed before I attain reality. Let's slow up the process towards attaining reality. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be rushing to the finish line because the way my logic has it, I have to be destroyed. Well, that doesn't sound like a good deal. So that's the trip, you see? The identification, you may have to catch it more than once. You have to see it in its dualistic garb of thief policeman. You got to see them both. Yeah. I just see, I don't, I was confused with when I went to satsang was people, let's say, what you are is a lion. And so that lion was going to talk to this lion and tell me I'm a lion. I would think that should be the clearest communication ever
Yeah, yeah.
because I am what they're trying to tell me. Why wasn't it fucking landing? There was an activity of being identified as a sheep that diverted the message I am a lion to as being heard by the sheep and turned into I can become like a lion, which is not the message. The message is you are that, but how are you going to get that if you take yourself to be a sheep? If you are that is represented as lion, and you are a lion, but the programming that's claiming the message is a sheep programming, there's the dilemma. So I said, I don't want to hear a description of being of a sheep, so I can recognize I'm not that. And then I'll find out I'm a lion. When you recognize you're not a sheep, you don't need 3 months of roaring lessons. You roar like that. Yes?
I like that one. I like that one. Like, it's kind of like a story I heard about a farmer seeing a kill the lioness, and then the
Yes,
lioness had a cub, and the cub
yes,
ended up, getting raised as a sheep or something. And
yes.
then when
That's
the
my whole,
cub, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and then the other lion said, "What the fuck is this lion doing with the sheep? Let me take him to the lake or something." Looked at the
yes.
lake. He looked at his reflection and he roared, and the other lion roared. End of story.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now he probably went back a couple months later and the farmer was acting like a sheep again.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
with it. I gotta tell you, I'm gonna describe a sheep to you so that you'll recognize it from the lion. Yes. That's what I thought. I thought as soon as the lion saw its reflection, that would be it. So you get the whack. You know, you hear the message, you get the whack. Oh, that's done. I'm a lion from this point on. It didn't go that way. Yeah, the sheep programming regrouped, and once again, the lion was subdued and the sheep was emphasized. Yeah, so
it's
I
like
figure. Hmm?
it's like that Terminator that regroups. Like remember the Terminator movie? He's like it goes
Exactly.
back, and it no matter what you do, it just comes back and.
Exactly. So you have to give up trying to kill it, obviously, because it doesn't really exist. This is what you learn. This isn't about vanquishing or killing or beating or destroying. There would have to be a thing to beat, kill, and destroy. It's an activity. And
It
you
will
don't
just say,
have to.
"I'll be back."
Hmm?
It will just say,
Yeah,
"I'll be back."
exactly. Except it's in your voice. So then you think, oh, you've never left. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's like that's the whole point. Hopefully, the futility of trying to get out of it as it will be successful and show you the utter futility of trying to get out of it as it. That's how it's successful, is by telling us it's not going to fucking work. Yeah? And then you're left with your own devices and you see they're not yours. Yeah? And then they're not taken so seriously. And then life can go on in a much more lighter manner as this little storyline. And then you can be busy enjoying peace of mind or fucking feeling content and shit like that. And yeah.
I get that. Yeah. So many. You said that satsangs are duality. It's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope so. We how are you gonna understand non-duality? There's no understanding of it. There's no understanding of it. There's no experience of it. There's no studying it. You are it. But you can study and experience and understand what you're not. You can. Yeah. And it will probably serve you well. Really. I don't feel like it's a constant. I think we all have the ability to be convinced. I do. I think sometimes when the shoe drops, it doesn't have to be a big explosion. It can be a tiny little echo that just reverberates. Yeah? But there is a point where there's a recognition and you've seen through what you used to look from. It's just that simple. Does it does it stop? No, it doesn't. It's mechanical. It just keeps it has its narrative. It'll try to run it against all fucking evidence. It doesn't matter. You're not going to convince it. it's not. It's not. It doesn't have that mail slot. Yeah. It's sort of like it's attention, it's attraction of attention, and the upping of the volume gets diminished greatly. Yeah, and now it's sort of like those big new TVs where you can have an old show in the tiny little square, and then the rest is this huge panoramic. Instead of this being the whole fucking screen, yeah, it's shrunk, and then something else not replaces it, was always available at all times actually, and now the attention's going there instead of the little square. Yeah, yeah. You can't produce that. It's impossible because that would be the little square enlarging itself by trying to be the little square. That would be big squaring.
Or kind of like the self wanting super enlightenment. It's the self that wants super enlightenment.
Oh yeah, of course. Shit. It wouldn't know what to do with it, first of all. That's the thing it's scared of the most. See, this to me, if you want it, like in Buddhism, they present the Four Noble Truths, yeah, about suffering and its desire. So if you look at desire, to me, the base of desire is the mental agitation, the desire to become and unbecome. Yeah? So the mental state wants to become what it doesn't think it is and wants to unbecome what it thinks it is. And it's like a slinky that just produces its own energy and it just goes on and on and on. Yeah? Now, there's a lot of stories that if I ran into the right thing, it would stop, but that's baloney. It's just to egg it on. Yeah? So there's a famous statement in Faith Mind, a famous Zen treatise, which is you can't use agitation to produce stillness. That would be agitation. So this is what's happening. Yeah? So there's a desire not to have a desire to become and unbecome, and on and on. It just goes, yeah.
Yeah, I did the selfless thing. I said maybe if I do selflessness, maybe if I give away everything, maybe that will liberate me. But being selfless is also selfing. It just
Exactly, but if you have that again, just send me your bank account number. Yeah,
I'm done being
I can put
selfless.
it to use. What?
Done with that. I got out of the sweat lodge, man.
I gotta wait for the ones in the sweat lodge. Yeah, I think you should give everything up, and I'm here.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
hold
yeah.
it. I had a guy once. He uh, he inherited $250,000. He came over to my house and he bitched about it for hours. Oh, it's going to separate me from my friends. And I said, hey, listen, bro, kick me down 70,000. I'll enjoy it right now. If it's such a burden, give it to me. You I love when people talk about, oh, it has nothing to do with the money, but they're not giving it up.
That's right. That's right.
That's funny.
That's right.
uh,
Uh, well, Paul, this has been fun. uh, it's 10 o'clock already. Where did time go?
oh,
Yeah,
oh, great.
thank you so much. Well, um, I think the conference will be great. We'll just talk like this then. I think it's just fine. This is good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd let
Yeah.
me know when. So I'll see you Sunday at 9:15.
That's right. Yeah. 9:15.
So I'll
We'll
get
just
on earlier.
yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. There's a
All
break
right.
of
Is it
15
this
minutes.
one? Is it this link that I use?
No, the one that you got from the email. The one
All
that
right.
from the
All right.
conference. If you have any
All
questions,
right.
just give me a call. Just message me.
I will.
Yeah, yeah.
I will.
This
Hey, I
is
want to
fun.
thank you so much.
Oh no, no, thank you.
It was a lot of fun today. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's, let's not take let's not take self too seriously. Yeah.
I know. I took it too seriously before, man. I gave away everything.
All
I
right.
got fucked over.
See you, bro.
All right, bro. Take care.
Well, we learn though. We learn here.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
we
right,
learned. I
man.
learned quickly at that sweat lodge. That sweat lodge taught me a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I
I didn't
should
have
have
to go
learned.
back.
I kept on going back to it. I'm like, maybe this time.
You learn now. You
Yeah,
learn
yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's
yeah.
okay. Now I got out of it.
Good. Good.
All right,
All right,
man.
bro. I'll see you
Take care.
soon.
I'll see you soon.
All right,
Take care.
bye.
Bye.